You're thinking of moving to Celina, Texas, and maybe more specifically, you may have settled in on the Legacy Hills subdivision, but you're a bit unsure of what life looks like inside it. And in today's video, I'm going to go over the pros and the cons of what living inside this community really look like. And the second con, a lot of people don't expect when they tour this community and really catches them off guard, so be sure to stick around for that. One of the biggest reasons a ton of buyers are paying attention to Legacy Hills is the long-term vision and plan behind it. It wasn't just a neighborhood the developers threw together and tried to sell really quickly. It's being designed as one of the largest mixed-use master plan developments in North Texas. It's kind of similar to PGA Frisco, their own golf course at much more affordable price points. You've got resort-style amenities, miles of connected walking trails, green space. They're going to have some commercial space in the future, and lifestyle components all built into one community. And for a lot of buyers, that's a really big deal over the next couple years, not having to commute as far to grocery stores like you did in Celina just a few years ago when it was a little farm town. And what really separates it from the other new Celina communities is it's being built with a really long vision in mind. They're going to be building in this community for I don't know how long. It's massive. Infrastructure, layouts, and roads are phased out. So they're doing everything in little sections, and it's going to grow with the city of Celina as it continues to expand north. They've got the new Dallas North Tollway extension. So it's going to help your commute time significantly when you're going into Dallas. And while buying in the early phases does have some downsides we'll get into later, one of the upsides is it doesn't feel finished when you move in, and 5 years down the road, as your kids grow up, it's not going to feel stagnant. There's going to be new developments, and the community evolves with all the new amenities getting built, additional neighborhood phases, and all the future developments. That's going to help your home value and resale appeal. Another thing I love about this community, and a lot of other buyers love, is, and we're seeing this a lot in all the North Texas suburbs, is they're making them their own little towns. So the whole goal is residents are going to have all your recreations and trails, exercise, green space, and all your restaurants, shopping, and schools nearby and built into the community, so you're cutting down on commute time. Now, that's going to be especially attractive for your families where time's sacred, having to run around with kids is stressful enough for you, and you're going to cut down on your commute time with that. Now, everything is not built out today, of course. It's going to be developing over the next years or decades. Buying early in a large master plan community like this often means you're going to get in right before the full vision is complete, which historically has a lot of upside potential in your equity. While getting in early and getting to see the community develop has a lot of upsides, let's get into some of the downsides of moving into a new master planned community. Something that isn't talked about enough with new construction, and that I think isn't really thought about, or a lot of realtors don't tell their clients, is you're still in an active construction zone. So you're going to have loud noises, beeping, big vehicles, 18-wheelers, flatbed trailers taking materials to the new construction sites throughout the day. They're going to start early in the day, especially in Texas in the summer when it gets to 110. The roofing crews and construction crews, they're going to start as early as they can, and sometimes a little bit earlier than they're supposed to. But I can't blame them, to be honest. Anyways.
All right, I am on my morning walk, 6:45. That's what I was talking about if you do move new construction. I didn't know they were allowed to do this, but they are pouring a foundation at 6:45. Now, it is a work day, it's a Wednesday, so, chances are you might already be up for work, but if you're not, could be one of the downsides. So I know lighting is terrible, I apologize, but
something else to think about is you're going to have nails and screws that just get in the road. They're supposed to pick them up. I think they've done a decent job in the new construction neighborhood I bought in, but when I go for a walk, I still find some. There's the occasional neighborhood Facebook group post that, hey, has anyone else got three nails in their tires? So it happens. That's something to think of and be aware of. There's going to be street sweepers, and when it rains, a lot of times, right, the lots that they're building on, they don't have grass. So a lot of the dirt washes into the road. Once it dries, get a street sweeper, you're going to have a lot of dust everywhere. My front door stays covered in dust, and if you park your vehicles outside, they're going to get a little dusty. So that's something to think about. And if you're someone that works from home, I work from home. I haven't had any troubles not being able to make a phone call or anything like that. I mean, there's been some loud noises, but it's not unbearable. That's something to think of. Or if you have younger kids and you're afraid they're not going to get used to the noise, be able to nap, don't necessarily have to rule out new construction completely. You may have to move into an area where the phase is a little bit more complete and you don't have framing and roofing and HVAC work going in right next door where it's super loud. The good news with this is, though, is usually the early phases of construction are the lowest price point to get in. So that is one of the trade-offs with this. And that may not be a deal breaker for you, but I think it needs to be mentioned because for some people it definitely is. Of course, if you're super into golf, I don't think you'd care about that. You've got your own golf course in the neighborhood. But let's get into the next pro, which is going to be you're in a great location and a growth corridor. Like I was saying, one of the biggest advantages, Legacy Hills is where it sits. So Legacy Hills is one of the furthest north communities in Celina, which is great because you get a lower entry price point just because it's further away from Dallas. But with where it's positioned and the Dallas North Tollway extension, your commute time is about to get cut down by a lot. So that's going to change everything for your commuting, and the long-term demand is obviously the closer and quicker you can get to Dallas, the more sought after. That's going to be great for any buyers that work in Frisco, Plano, Legacy West, even parts of Dallas. Very accessible, and it's going to just ease your quality of life and give you options. You're not just locked into one route as the roads. Celina's expanding the infrastructure and continue to improve that, which is something you as a buyer are going to consistently value over time, and just a small improvement of quality of life. That's why a lot of people are saying Celina is the next Frisco, where Frisco was 10, 15 years ago. Frisco is running out of land to build on, so the demand is naturally just pushing further and further up. It pushed into Prosper, now it's pushing into Celina. So you've got a great appreciation potential standpoint, and your proximity to your major employers and infrastructure is pretty hard to beat. Just to give you an idea of how much Celina is expected to grow, in 2010 it had about 6,000 people. Currently, early 2026, it's a little over 50,000. And by 2030, they're expecting it to be close to or a little over 100,000 people. So it's expected to, nearly double over the next 4 or 5 years. And I think it checks a lot of boxes for people. You're not going to be too far from Dallas. You're not far from a lot of the other major employers, and you still get the new construction, the space, and you're getting a lower price point versus if you try and buy a similar home in, say, Prosper or Frisco. Now, one of the most important things, and something that I think catches a lot of people off guard when looking at a lot of communities in North Texas, especially Legacy Hills, are going to be your taxes and HOA costs. Now, Legacy Hills is going to be higher than average on the taxes because they're in a MUD. Now, MUD is going to be your municipal utility district. If you aren't familiar with what a MUD is an extra tax assessment, which is going to help with your water, sewage, drainage, and roads through an added portion of property taxes. And because Legacy Hills is a large master plan community with long-term amenities, you're going to pay, of course, higher HOA. Now, the taxes are going to be about 2.8 to 3.1% depending on the section, and HOAs are going to be about $1,000 to $1,200 per year, which is about average for this area HOA wise. The normal taxes are normally low to mid 2, so you're a little bit higher on that. And for some buyers, understandably so, that's going to be a big hesitation or potential deal breaker. Your taxes are of course directly going to affect your monthly payments, what house you're going to be able to afford. And especially if you're coming from out of state or an older established neighborhood with a lower tax rate, it's going to be a bit of sticker shock for you. Those higher taxes and your HOA fees are going to fund the infrastructure and amenities that make the community why you wanted to buy it. You're going to have your trails, green space, amenities, landscapings. Of course, in Legacy Hills, you're going to have your own golf course. So you're not just paying for what exists today, you're going to contribute to the community that it's going to be built into over the next several years. So the question for you is going to be, do you want lower taxes with potentially fewer amenities, or are you okay paying more in taxes and HOAs to have a better amenities and communities? Now, if that's not the case for you, you want a lower one, reach out to me. I'd love to help you explore other options in Celina and surrounding areas, but there's no wrong answer for you. This is a total personal preference on which one you want and which one you can comfortably afford and checks all the boxes for you and your family. News for you is these costs aren't hidden. There is a separate form you have to sign and the builders will make you aware of, as will myself before going out. But you need to understand them up front so you're more confident and comfortable with your decision. If you have any questions on these, I walk buyers through MUD, PID, other tax assessments, and HOA fees. So feel free to reach out to me if you want a little more clarity on that. But let's get into the next pro, which is going to be builder lineup, diversity in the community from builder floor plans. What I was discussing was the diverse builders and price points and lot sizes. It's something super unique to Legacy Hills. You're going to have 40, 50, 60, and 70-foot lots. Your price ranges are going to be from the mid fives well into the mid-million dollar mark. You're going to have a great builder lineup. You're going to have your American Legend, Dries, Perry, your DR Hortons, just to name a few. There's a bunch of others. And what you're going to get with that you don't see in a lot of neighborhoods, normally there's not that many builders in neighborhoods. Normally it's like 1 to 3 or 4 that I see. So you get a lot of the same looking floor plans. It looks like the builder went copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste with some minor elevation changes. That group of diverse builders, it's going to have a lot more visual appeal throughout the neighborhood. And, you know, just because they all have their own unique characteristics that driving down the street, you can go, oh, that's an American Legend, that's a DR, that's a Grand Home. You're going to be able to tell it's unique. And, you know, I feel like that really helps communities hold their value and, just like I said, be more visually appealing. What else is great about that is, say you're a younger person, just started a family, you want to buy your first home, you know, mid fives is not unreasonable. And if you really love the neighborhood and community, later down the road, you can just move up in house and not have to go find a new community that you love. So I think that's a big bonus to it. And like I talked about, getting in early is great because normally the home prices are a little bit lower at the start of new communities versus if you get in at one of the middle or end phases. But getting in early has its trade-offs, which is where our next con is going to be. And we're going to be discussing your commute times from Legacy Hills. Commuting very well may not even be a factor for you, especially if you have the luxury of working from home. But if you don't, you know, if you work in Frisco or Prosper, which are pretty popular job corridors now, so many headquarters moving there, you're not going to be bad at all. You're going to be about 20 or 30 minutes. You're going to get there via Preston Road, also known as Highway 289, and maybe even less once the Dallas North Tollway extension is completed. Like I said, Legacy Hills is on the northern section of Celina. So once that opens up, it'll be even less. Now, it also won't be bad if you work around Legacy West, Toyota's headquarters, or major job corridors along the Dallas North Tollway. You're not going to be bad. Plano, you're only about 35 or 45 minutes, so very manageable, but you know, it does start to feel a little bit longer. North Dallas, you're about 45 or 55 minutes away. And, you know, the biggest variable on that is going to be how much traffic there is. So those could be, you know, an extra 15, 20, 30 minutes depending on traffic. Now, this is where it may be a deal breaker. If you have to work in downtown Dallas, you're going to be over an hour away. And while the Dallas North Tollway extension is going to cut that down once it's done, you know, with traffic, I would still expect an hour during peak time. So that's something to keep in mind. You may be better off finding a community in Celina that's a little bit further south and, you know, save 10, 15 minutes, or moving into Prosper, Frisco, or Plano. What I've seen, Legacy Hills tends to attract a lot of your remote or hybrid workers, where if you only have to make that drive maybe 2-3 days a week, you may consider it worth it. Or if you work in like Frisco, Plano, or North Dallas. So that's going to be the commutes. Of course, if you want to drive to downtown Dallas, that's up to you. I'll be happy to help you if you get a great deal in Legacy Hills, but I wanted to make you aware of that. The commute is not a deal breaker for everyone, but it's something, you know, I want you to be aware of and understand what Dallas traffic patterns look like to make sure it makes sense if this is a community you want to look further into, or if you need to pivot, change gears, and, you know, maybe reconsider a closer suburb or just one further south of Celina. Well, I don't think the longer commutes is necessarily all bad, especially, of course, if you're not even commuting, but it does lead into, you know, the future and all the growth heading north and the long-term potential. So let's see what that kind of looks like. So what's coming long-term for Celina? Of course, you've got a lot more jobs, growing further. Dallas North Tollway extension, more homes and neighborhoods. The population's expected to almost double by the early 2030s. So you've got a lot of people coming here, which is great, but what does that mean for you? This community is still in the super early phases, right? They don't have all the retail, shopping, and dining quite set up yet. And once that's done, that's usually when there's a big boom, a lot more people moving here, and you can see that appreciation like you tend to see in the newer communities like Light Farms and Windsong Ranch that saw a super big jump after they were, open 5 to 7 years. Now, I realize COVID helped with that, but you still normally see a jump after the communities have developed and grown in, and the infrastructure is there to support it and make it even more desirable to live there. Now, for future growth, you also have to look at what's coming that's nearby. So you're only 15 miles from PGA headquarters. If you love to golf, you don't want to golf at the community course, maybe you've mastered that, need a little bit of a challenge. You've got PGA Frisco, all the eats, everything there. You've got Gates of Prosper for shopping. And then, of course, you've got Universal Kids Resorts, which isn't much further than PGA headquarters. So you've got a lot to look forward to, a lot coming. Once the tollway extension is done too, Frisco's only going to be about 20 minutes away versus about 30. So you're going to shave 10 minutes off your drive each way, which will save you even more time, make it even more convenient for you. And what's pretty crazy to think about and put in perspective is Legacy Hills is going to be over 3,200 acres. It has its own golf course. And I'm sure if you've done any research or considering a move here to North Texas, Fields of Frisco is one of the top spots. It's only, I say only, it's 2,500 acres. So Legacy Hills is going to be even bigger. Now, right now, I think the Fields has an upper leg. Not what this video is about, but you've got PGA and Omni right there, and then you're closer to Dallas. So of course the homes are way more expensive than Fields. But what I'm getting at is what you get in Legacy Hills. You're a little further away, but you get in at the 500s versus the 800s at Fields. You still get your own golf course, and you're only 20 minutes away if you want to go to the Fields. It's a pretty big win-win in my opinion. This is something we touched on a little bit earlier in the video, and it's a pretty common theme with a lot of the new construction here, is you're going to have your limited mature amenities and neighborhoods. So, you may move in and, you don't have the golf course yet, you don't have a pool, there aren't a ton of parks, or, there just aren't a ton of neighbors for your kids to play with and hang out with yet. Or, if you just love being neighborly, having game nights, meeting neighbors, hanging out with them, barbecues, football, whatever. That may be a little limited for the first few years. Now, reach out to me. We can see, depending on when you reach out, what that looks like, if it's a little bit more developed, if that's something that's super important to you. To give you a timeline of what's coming inside the community, you have the 18-hole public golf course, which is expected to be done 2026, 2027 timeframe. So you're really not that far out from it, about a year or so. You're going to have an on-site Celina ISD elementary school in some later phases. And of course, the parks and trails and all that are going to eventually connect. They've started them, but you may have some dirt from washouts, rains and whatnot, so they're not perfect. Some of them are there though. And something else to consider, a lot of your everyday conveniences are still going to be 10, 15 minutes away. So, if you're used to living in like a Frisco, Allen, McKinney, or, another state's big suburbs where you have an HEB or a Kroger right outside the neighborhood, it's not going to be the case just yet. You're going to have to be a little strategic and not forget to get groceries while you're out like I do. But not a big deal, it's just something to think about and consider. I hope you found this video helpful and found out some real pros and cons to help you make a decision when moving here. And if you want to get in early before everything's finished, right now is your window. I would expect once the golf course is complete, you're going to see a little bit more of a surge. And then once the elementary school is complete, it's going to be even more desirable. Dallas North Tollway expands. I hope a lot of families relocate here in North Texas and find out which communities fit their lifestyle and budget, not which ones are just the prettiest. So if you're thinking about moving to Celina, Prosper, or any of those North Texas growth suburbs, reach out to me. I'd love to help you make a move, see if it even makes sense for you to make a move here, and have a smooth transition while doing it.